Thanks for watching this video about the Scribe Dynamics NAV Connector. We're going to go through a couple of PowerPoint slides, a little bit of a brief demo, and then kind of an overview of some of the resources that are available to you to learn more about the connector after this video. So a brief description of Scribe Online to start with. Scribe Online is a simple graphical user interface. It has very broad connectivity. So we connect to many different applications, both front office, back office, based technologies, really run the gambit of things you would need to connect to in order to build that complete integration. Scribe Online is also multi-tenanted and it's a multi-user model, meaning that you can have multiple people having access to the same organizational tenant. You can build integrations together. You can bring partners in. You can have end user customer IT staff getting brought in, basically giving you a collaboration model that you can use in order to bring the right people in at the right time to build these integrations. The platform also supports integration, migration, and replication. Those are the three services built atop the platform. So you may hear IS thrown around a lot, RS, those are the integration and replication services. There's also a migration service called MS, which is a partner provided service that we can enable to basically do migrations for end user customers periodically. The platform's also extensible. So we have our connector developer kit, which is how Scribe builds all the connectors built on the platform. We have our fast connector framework, which allows us to build connectivity out much more quickly to simple HTTP endpoints. And then we also have a set of public REST APIs that help power the platform. These are our management APIs. The platform's focused on integration lifecycle management, so we utilize this by having a nice visual design environment. You can go in, you can allow business analysts to build those integrations. It's self-documenting, it's a drag and drop interface, very simple to work with. It's, as we like to say, it's got a very low floor, but a very high ceiling. You can build really simple integrations quickly and easily, but you can also build really dynamic, complex integrations without having to get into writing custom code. It's got a native cloud multi-tenancy. So this means that we host this internally. We allow you to have different tenants, different areas of the platform that you're going to gain access to. This allows you to have, from a partner model, you can manage many customers. From a customer model, you might have different divisions of labor across different departments that you want isolated in their own tenants. You can utilize that with the multi-tenancy built into the platform. You have a flexible deployment model. So you could run cloud agents in the Scribe Online Cloud. That allows you to have a completely cloud-hosted integration solution, or you can install agents behind your firewall on-premise, allowing you to get access to some of those local resources. And it's also usage-based pricing. So we price based upon the number of connections and the type of connectors that you need, as well as some different feature sets that come into there. But really, as you need to add more connectivity, you start to move up that pricing chain. The way that the Scribe Online platform is built is the underlying persistence layer. This is where we're going to hold data. This is in our cloud storage. This is Azure and some SQL thrown into it. We store information around the tenants. So your organization name, who has access to it, some of the different information you have within there, your type of licensing with us. The way that has always been delivered to market has been through our Azure Cloud Services. We have a set of SOAP APIs that have our Silverlight client gain access to it. Moving forward, we've started adding some different endpoints. So we have event-based integration where we can expose integration through a REST endpoint that can be invoked from really anywhere in the world that you'd want to call integration into. We also have our set of management APIs have been expanding of late. So now you have the ability through other clients you can build on top of the platform to gain access to just the field mapping utilities, some of the other components. Going forward, this is the model Scribe's utilizing, where our new UIs will be built entirely upon these public REST APIs. And there's more information coming out around that in late Q2, early Q3 of 2016 about some of the changes to our user interface. So the meat of it, the Dynamics NAV Connector. Basically, we built this to help support more of the front office, back office integration stories that we've always been known for. We've been really well known in the Dynamics community, especially for doing some CRM to ERP integrations. And a lot of that was built upon our Scribe Insight product. So we've added the NAV connector for Scribe Online to allow us to start to offer that up in the online interfaces. It utilizes a more modern technology than some of our previous attempts at nav within Insight have. So this is utilizing OData to connect it to NAV. It exposes basically standard custom objects, anything that nav OData service can surface up. We are now able to connect into and provide integration, into and out of NAV. Supports nav on-prem and in the cloud. I mentioned before we have cloud and premise agents. That's how we can support that. And it really is a very straightforward OData approach. We don't go through the NAS. We don't do anything where we don't try to hide any components that what we're doing. Everything's very surface. Because of that, you'll see in some of the later on slides, when we talk about providing integration starter packs, it's a very different model than what we've had in the past. But we feel that this is a better model for those NAV developers who have always liked to work with NAV. You want to work within there. You want to do your work inside of that platform. We're going to allow you to do that and service up more of that work outwardly through the OData client. So the details on this, supports NAV 2015 and 2016. NAV 2013 had OData, but it was read-only, so you could extract data through that. We just didn't see too much of an impact by trying to build a really robust connector around that. This is basically what we did all the testing against, was NAV 2015 and 2016, because it has that OData connectivity that we can push data into. That OData is set up within NAV, so when we see in the demo, we'll actually walk through adding an object and exactly how that works. But the big thing is that the objects that are supported through that OData interface is what's going to dictate what type of integration we can do. We can't control what objects are there, but we can support anything that does show up. So it's up to you inside of NAV to add objects that you need for the integration. If it's not there within your metadata, you can simply go through and re-add that through the web services interface. You're just going to have to go into NAV to do that. It supports both objects and queries in NAV. That's actually pretty cool because I can build a query inside of NAV to surface up just the data I need to work with. I don't have to build that logic twice. If I already did it in NAV to support some reports and some lists, I can just surface that up as a query object and Scribe can pull data from there. So it's kind of cool that logic can exist within NAV. We support basic CRUD operations as well as batch, so create, read, update, delete. Anything you really need to do for your integration options are going to be exposed via the connector. We also support optimistic concurrency with entity tags, and these are going to show up called e-tags inside the metadata. This is, again, going to allow us to leverage NAV and OData capabilities to not have to reduplicate logic. So if I push data in and the optimistic concurrency tells OData that object already exists, it will update it. So there is some of that logic that can be configured outside of the Scribe side, but it can be leveraged inside the Scribe. So it's kind of cool that that is something that gets surfaced up. And then lastly, it supports multi-company. So if you take our native OData connector and just point it at NAV, you'll get most of the same objects will show up, but there are certain things we had to take a little more effort to code in. So this was one of them, was that you could only integrate with the default company with the native OData just client. We had to add some logic in to make sure you can integrate with a multi-company approach. But we tried to do as minimal amount of that, connector development as possible because we didn't want to have a lot of scribiness to this. We didn't want to have things that just happened on your behest without you knowing about it. This was a way that we could really support more, again, that developer persona is what we wanted to focus on to make sure that you all had what you need to build really robust integrations. So we'll go ahead and jump into the demo. So in this demo, we're going to cover off some of the pieces around exactly how to get NAV going. So first off, we can find NAV within the marketplace. So we can go ahead, install that connector here from the marketplace. This is going to allow us to get a provision into this organization and really let us get started with that connector. So once that connector is actually installed, we can go ahead and create a connection to it. We'll go ahead and just add a connection here. We can see from the dropdown that NAV has been listed, so I can go ahead and fill in the details here. So this is all information that I could find within my NAV interface. Just give it a quick name, and then put in that OData service URL. That's going to be found within, again, that NAV client. You can get it there. User is my domain user that needs to have access to NAV. Password for that user. and then the company name. That user is going to be important because we can connect under that user context, which really means that whatever that user can do, we can do. Anything that they can't do, we also can't do. So you want to make sure you log in as a user with appropriate privileges to do, what we need to do within NAV. Once I've got all that information in there, I can go ahead and test it. It should come back okay, and then I'm going to be able to then utilize that connection. So that connection gives me access to that OData endpoint. It's going to bring back all the metadata that I have within there, and it's going to allow me to then utilize that inside my integration mappings. All right, so now let's go ahead and utilize that connection. So I'm going to build a quick solution just so I can kind of show off exactly what we've got in here. So I'm going to create a new map. I'm going to utilize nav as the source. Again, you could use it as the target, doesn't really matter, but I just want to have a quick vehicle to show me exactly what objects are exposed. It's going out and querying nav right now to pull back the metadata. So it's going to bring back a list of entities that we have within that OData interface. I'll drag a quick query block over here, throw a for each result on it, and let's take a look at what objects are exposed. So this is the list of objects that are exposed within my nav OData client. Yours might look a little bit different. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and add a new object to that list. So I'm going to go into nav and go to my web services area within nav. So I can see the list here. This should correspond with what I've got inside of my query block. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new object. And I'm going to use a page, so we expose pages and queries, not code units. So in this case, I'm going to pick purchase order. So you can see that the default name's there. I'm going to give it a custom name so that I can really show that this does show up inside of Scribe. And lastly, I'm going to make that public. So now I've added that object to my OData instance. I have to go back to Scribe now, and I'm just going to hit reset metadata. This is going to tell Scribe to flush out whatever it had for metadata and requery nav to pull all that back. So now it's brought back the metadata. I can go back into query, take a look at those entities, and I can see my PO here. Now I can also see it's brought back the PO header and the PO line items. So the connector is smart enough to know that if I've got a header, bring back the corresponding lines. Don't force me to go back into the OData interface to add those specific line items. Now, one thing about the nav OData implementation is it doesn't support relationships in the way that we do within Scribe. So we can see here that relationship does not exist. It doesn't show up with lines. So what I have to do is I have to utilize fetch blocks in order to bring back that line data. So I can simply add that line object here, add a filter that will allow me to link the two together, and it lets me roll my own joins. So it's not the standard way that Scribe has always done this, but it works within that nav OData interface. If eventually that OData client supports the ability to do relationships the way Scribe does, then we can add that into here. What we're going to do is just go ahead and we're going to import the nav starter pack just to kind of show off. We're going to talk about it in a second when we get back to the PowerPoint, but there's discrete components of this starter pack. You can see here they're broken apart by whether it's nav or text, CRM or text, and also what objects are supported. But it does give you a nice set of maps that you can utilize to learn and to build off of these things. You can see they're pretty feature complete and they're good educational material. All right, so let's get back to the slides here. So we mentioned earlier the nav starter pack. The nav starter pack is a little bit different than what we've done in the past. It is meant to educate you on how to work with nav OData and within Scribe. It's not a plug and play front office, back office integration. You can leverage the maps that we've already supplied and you can build on top of them, but they're not going to be a full, complete solution you just drop and play. It does support nav CRM as well as nav text, and we did this because a lot of our customers obviously are in the Microsoft Dynamics CRM space. We want to supply that as a nice, easy baseline, but not everyone is in the CRM space. So we've supplied generic text files that are kind of a canonical model of accounts, addresses, some of the objects that we built into the starter pack that you can then take that same set of logic and apply it to things like Salesforce or NetSuite, Sugar CRM, some of the other apps that we have within the connector ecosystem. So we supplied that as just a little bit of having more options in order to be an educational piece. I won't go through and read this, but you can kind of see here, this is the scope of what the starter pack does. So it's a basic, account and address sync. It is a two-way integration, so we do show how to pull data out from Nav as well as pushing data back in, but it does focus on these use cases. This goes through and will show you things like parent-child relationships between accounts and addresses, how to do joins. So we saw that a little bit in the demo, but this is another educational component where it will give you some ability to really see this live and in person. So some resources. This information is available on the connectivity library. So that connectivity library is found on the Scribe home site. If you go under the product menu, you'll see connectivity right there under Scribe Online, and you can find Nav within there. You could also use the search feature on the website. The starter pack is also available from the Nav area within the connectivity library. So you see we have a listing for the connector and a listing for the starter pack. The connector is available in the marketplace currently, so you can download this now. It's free to download. It is included in the basic tier of connectors. Help is found on the Scribe Online Help forum. You can see again within the, just go to the Scribe Online Help, there's a connectors area, and you'll see Nav listed there. Any other resources we add, things like demo videos, other data sheets, white papers, they'll all come off of that connectivity library listing. So keep an eye there for anything you want to look at for Nav. And if there's things you need and you haven't seen, or for more information on how to work with this, contact sales@scribesoft.com. They'll be able to get you whatever information you need. So I want to say thank you for watching this video. I hope it's answered some questions for you. And please don't hesitate to follow up with us if you have any other questions.